All right, everyone. Welcome once again. It is Friday, and you know what that means. It's time for the manufacturing e-commerce success. You thought I was going down the wrong road, right? We're talking about the manufacturing e-commerce success today, and we are talking first of all, we're going to be talking about offloading your way to massive success. And I'm going to let my friend, cohort, partner in crime over there, Kurt Anderson, announce our guest, friend, awesome person we're going to be talking to today.
Damon, thank you, dude. Happy Friday. Glad the weekend's here, man. I'm glad you know where you are, right? So
yeah, it's getting
and are
closer
we
than not.
ready for the weekend or not? So hey, even though it's still Friday morning for you, it's Friday like lunchtime for me.
Yep.
For our friend here, it's like it's even
Yep.
past happy hour for this guy. So
Mhm.
we have Frans van Loef here today, coming to us live from the Netherlands. Frans, happy Friday. How are you, dude?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, guys, and I'm really enjoy being here. And as you said, it's dark here already outside, but I'm kicking in life and more than welcome to join you guys and to share some insights on offloading.
Well, thank you for sacrificing your Friday evening. We are honored. We are blessed. You are a repeat offender. My goodness gracious. You were on the show back in October. We were live together in New York City. Now you are across the pond. And so we are honored and privileged to have you join us here on a Friday evening. So, friends, we have a ton to cover. And to be frank with you, Damon, the only reason we're doing this is that, this is really a therapy session for me. This is why we're doing it. So, this is why we brought Frans on. So, guys, you're out there, drop us a note. Let us know where you're coming from. You want to absolutely connect with Frans on LinkedIn. He puts out all sorts of great content. He has a new book that is on the streets. It's going to be hitting the United States this year. And so we're going to be digging into that. This is book number 3. Frans, before we dig into how do you offload your way to success, question for you, my friend. As a young boy growing up in the Netherlands, who was your hero? Who did you look up to? Who did you admire? Who really inspired you as a young guy growing up?
Well, that's an uncle, and this uncle of mine, he was in the end the inventor of something that's called cooker. I don't think so. It's in the US, but cooker is a tap which immediately has instant, cooking water, and also sparkling water and cold water. But to tell you very briefly, my uncle did basically move up to the global R&D director of Unilever. And then they did develop a product. It was called Cupa soup. I don't know how you call it in the US, but it's like it's a bit probably the same. And then he said to the marketing people, guys, I mean, this is either a disaster or it's going to be a huge success, depending on how quickly can you pour boiling water in it. And so Unilever was not interested in that kind of stuff. So he decided to quit, and he started in his own house in the cellar to work on this kind of idea. And to make a long story short, every single person who knew him was convinced he's going to die in that cellar and we're never ever going to see this cooker. I spent 1 year as a student at their home, and I had to kick him out of the cellar every evening to have at least some dinner. But he succeeded after 10 years. I mean, he was totally in debt, not a single euro still there, but he was so convinced that he could make it work. And in the end, it's funny, there was one last piece that was missing, and then one of his 3 sons decided to join him, and that son was a lawyer. It's very interesting, but he thought, lawyers, I mean, just not only bad people, but bad business. So he did quit. He did join his dad in the cellar, and a great product came out. And so now it's a huge success in Europe. But why I like him is because he was so convinced that he could make it work, and everything was against it, everything and everything. But he did prove that if you really believe in it and you can basically play the long game, he succeeded. So that was my hero.
Man, what a great
That is incredible
story right there. What's your uncle's name, Frans?
Han Petri. Yeah, he passed already away quite a number of years ago, but that's amazing.
It is an amazing story. Wow.
So just sheer persistence, relentless drive, just and all right, and this is going to really tie into our conversation today. From I'm going to go here. I wasn't planning on it, but let's share like what did his influence? How did his influence impact or reflect on you as you were kind of starting off your career as a young person?
Well, it was not as much that I can't link it to an action or a move I made, but just the fact that if you really want something, you need kind of ultra focus, because that's what he was doing. I mean, anything else but the cooker was not coming in the cellar and was not coming out of the cellar, and that was something that's really stick to my system. If you have been running companies as CEO, if you ask people that I've been working with a rare exception, they will all say, there's a lot of stuff that we are glad he's not anymore here around. But one thing we did love about Frans, that he had always focus, and he did always bring back the focus. And that's also a little bit where the offload stuff kind of developed, because I was always surrounded by people who love to pile up, and who, I mean, if I just did understand the first proposal, there were already the third proposal was in front of mine. That was the environment. But so the focus was really what stick to me, and it fitted me, because your brains need a little bit to support it.
Yeah.
Well, all right, I love that. So we're gonna dive. All right, ultra focus, man. This is gonna be such a good session. I want to dive in. All right. So question that came into us. All right. So if let's just say hypothetically that there's somebody on this stage that is notoriously an overloader, I'm just asking for a friend. What advice do you have for somebody that is an overloader? I'm just kidding. We're talking about this guy. So how do you help these people that are just constantly bringing on new tasks?
There are two key questions. One is they have to be very honest with it. They have to really ask themselves, the people I'm basically overloading, do they meet expectations in terms of their results and deliverables? Mm-hmm. Or do I see that there is always an excuse, we're always kind of delayed? So that's the first thing, do we deliver what we promised? That's one thing. But more important is the second question, and I did also learn myself, always ask your people, are you capable of doing it right now? And because then you have on the spot, you get the right discussion. Either they tell you, well, Frans, to be honest, I'm already pretty loaded and I don't see how it works. Or they say, I can start with it, but then please, just join me and let's look together what of the other things I'm already working on, we should basically kind of put on hold or even stop. Mm-hmm. The key question, are you capable of doing it? Because it's two things. It is content driven, but you also show the human element in it. Right.
Okay.
And of course, people have to trust that you are really interested in the answer. Because if you just ask and say, "Oh, good, glad to know, but we're going to do it anyway," then it doesn't make sense. Then you're just only killing stuff.
Well, perfect. All right, guys. So if you're just joining us, man, drop us a note. Let us know you're out there. Give Frans a big warm hello. Connect with Frans on LinkedIn. You will thank us later. We're going to dive in. I don't know if anybody wants a show of hands. How many people out there chase that shiny object syndrome problem and always, going after the next great thing? Frans, I'm going to go back in time. So we talked about your uncle being a wonderful hero to you. Next step. As you were kicking off your career, did you know that what was there an aha moment? Did you know that you're going to become the offloading expert? Were there things that were going on in your early career? They were like, man, this just isn't going well. Walk us through the history and the story of how you kind of became this offloading expert.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, because I did run into it immediately, but didn't recognize it. Mm-hmm. So it took me quite a while. So basically what happened to me was a little bit of my career. I was starting in Germany in a meat factory, and the plant manager did go on holiday, but he never came back. He was in terms of nowadays, he had a burnout. I did happen to be there, and so the country manager asked me, could you kind of take care of the plant for just 2 months, because we're going to recruit someone else and we are going to find someone new. Well, that 2 months turned out to be 18 months. And so out of the blue, I was running a meat factory. Yeah. And I can tell you, this would be impossible in the Netherlands, because the possibles in the Netherlands, no one would accept me as the kind of whatever, the leader. In Germany, it's a different culture. You say, okay, if you are now the interim plant manager, you are, even though you don't know anything, of course, you have no clue what's happening, they accept it. And I immediately told them, the core team, I need you badly because I have no clue. I can make decisions, but you have to tell me what decision I have to make. So that was a starting point. And then I will go quite quickly. Then after a year and a half, finally there was someone there, and then there was another issue, Germany, another plan. So they all shipped me over there. And so it turned out that I was, that's of course your own discovery, I did find out that besides all the stuff that I'm very bad at and I am not capable of doing it, I find out there were two things that really did fit me. One, I could very quickly understand what a business I didn't know, what is it all about? And the focus helps. So I could really understand very quickly, okay, what does really matter here? What are the challenges, big issues? And secondly, I could really connect with people because that's what you need in this kind of situation. So before I knew what was happening, I was just basically sent from one challenge to another challenge, and that was fine. I did like it, and that was going well. But then all of a sudden, I was in a company, and then a private equity company did buy the company. I had no clue what the hell private equity was. No clue at all.
Yeah,
I never heard about it, and whatever. But then it was interesting. Then I did find out that I was already running that company, and then all of a sudden I realized, I think within 2 or 3 months, I said, I don't know what happened, but it feels like I have 4 days a week additional all of a sudden. Because before that, I felt like I was only, as a managing director, I was only reporting and explaining and repair plans. I wasn't working, I was only talking about work, but not working. And all of a sudden, private equity, they were not interested in listening to me. They didn't want big reports. They wanted me to deliver. They said, Frans, what are you going to do? And don't tell me 10 things because you're not going to deliver on it. So that kind of it was for me an extremely valuable step. But then I realized that because in the company before I was running, it was quite normal to have great targets for a year. And of course, miss most of them, come close or not come close. But that was fact of life. And then you have a lot of explanations and reports, and then the next year starts. This works differently. So then I realized, so I have to make sure that we accelerate on execution of our strategic plan or actions. And then I had no clue how to do it. So, and then at some point of time, and it took me a while, guys, then all of a sudden I had an experience. I was, again, new in another company. I was 3 months there. We had kind of adjusted the strategy, which the team was for me new. And after 3 or 4 months with an off-site day, and then I wanted to prepare it, and then my head just blocked. And I thought, what the hell is going on? And then I said, well, I don't know what we were going to do, but on the strategic stuff, I think we didn't move an inch. Nothing really there. So I said, okay, I can make a great plan for the off day, but that doesn't work. So I said, I have only one agenda item, and it is, am I crazy or do you guys see the same? That we are not moving on it. And so we did spend all day. It was a very constructive session.
Yeah.
But, we discussed about the market, about competitors, about our own. Anything you can imagine, we passed by and we checked it. What do we have wrong assumption? Whatever. Even I, of course, had to try to figure out myself. Are they really believing what we agreed on, or just do they think, well, this France, a year from now is gone, so we'll survive, that pretend that we do something, we're not going to do it. So at the end of the day, we had discussed everything, but I still felt we didn't touch the real thing. I had no clue what it was, but I did feel it. So then it took, again, a little while, and then all of a sudden, you guys know exactly how it goes. I think I was not at all thinking about this. All of a sudden, I realized, I think I know what it is. When we talk about like new plans for a year or for strategy, we discuss at length the financial consequences. Do we need more money? Do we need to invest? But we spent hardly 2 minutes on the human capacity we need to do it. We just assume, okay, we can do it, we can handle it. But I know how it's with you guys, but I never ever had a person walking up to me Thursday morning and say, Frans, I'm ready for the week. Do you still have some work for me? Never ever. But we pretended as if we could just, throw in another, number of big things. So then I realized we have to free up capacity if we add stuff to whatever we're doing. That was the first thing. And I think I was already working like 10 years. So I had a slow starting insight on this. But then all of a sudden I realized. And then there were two really interesting things that happened. Because when I realized it, I shared with my team, I said, yeah, you're right, we don't think about it, and it's not possible. Then I had two very interesting observations, which probably a lot of people who are now in the show will recognize themselves. The first one was that I started to see, well, where can we unlock capacity? And the interesting thing is, it could be everywhere, in every corner of the company I was running at the time. And I must say, there were two things important, because I ask everyone. I just ask people, not from, are you doing stupid work, or I ask everyone the following question. I need you a day per week, as of next week. Would you think about what work could you drop or stop so that I can start using you on this new exciting initiative where we want to work on? And I said there's only one small addition to my request. You can, basically delegate your work to someone else, but not by adding it. If you do it, you have to figure out with your colleague what he or she can get rid of. So it's a zero-sum thing. And then the interesting thing is there was a ton of things that came up. But what I said, there were two things important. One was they trusted me. If they don't trust you, they're not going to tell you, because then they say, well, Frans is looking for layoff opportunities. So that was one thing. And the other thing, which is equally important, that I had attractive alternatives. So I had something which was really exciting that people say, well, I would love to work on that, or at least to contribute to it. And so that was the first thing, that there was so much stuff that we could just stop. To give you one example, guys, at some point I ask people, for example, if you look at your top 5 projects you are involved, not everyone's involved in 5 projects. Say, could you tell me, is there any of this project where you would kind of like to withdraw, step out? And you know what happened? I don't know anymore the exact number, but there were several projects where all participants did sign, take me out of here. That's quite interesting, where everyone's saying it. But so then the second thing, the insight that, because when I knew, okay, there's a lot of capacity to unlock, the second thing that took me by surprise, because when I knew, okay, what can we do? I thought this is going to take a year, to really unlock it. And that was, again, a really worry for me. And then again, it turned out that I think the first time I was dealing with it, I think it took us 8 to 10 weeks to, I think, offload probably 80% of this stuff. Right. Everyone was involved. And what's interesting, because I always thought, why was it so easy, or why could you do it so quick? Also here, I think there were a few insights that helped. One, of course, a lot of it, people already did really think, why are we doing it? So it was very easy. And the second thing is, most of this, what was already becoming kind of trivial stuff, was more in the energy drain corner than in the energy gain corner. So people did love to get rid of stuff that is already kind of energy drain. So that was two. And then over time, with ups and downs and stuff that they totally screwed up, I think it went well. I became more and more experienced in this kind of, basically what I would call offloading and relocating human resource. But I had no clue how the outside world looks like. And then a couple of friends of mine, we had a kind of evening discussion about what's going on. And then, of course, everyone started with, it's going great with us, that's, how it goes. But we with a few more drinks, and we really get in a real discussion. And then all of a sudden I heard this stuff from, but the only thing, that worries me, we don't make choices. We try to do everything at the same time. And then I heard stuff that was so familiar to me, but that was for me an eye-opener, because I was never thinking about how is it different in other organizations. I mean, I was only focused on organization I was involved in at that moment. That's kind of how this kind of whole offload stuff did kind of evolve and it grow. And then at some point in time, two people asked me, could you come to our board meeting and explain us in an hour, how do you do it? But the interesting thing is, you know what to add to it. But Frans, one thing, we are tired of models. So don't come with a model, you know, and don't come with too much. We are only interested, how do you do it? And that's basically, I think, the starting from where I said, hey, I kind of enjoy it. I was not anymore there in charge, but I did kind of feel I'm really passionate to help others. And then I just decided to stop and start on this new journey. That's nice. Already 10 years on its way now.
10 years.
Yeah.
And well, go ahead, Damon.
Oh, we got people in here, so I want to just say hello to Gail.
Hey,
Glad to see you here today, Gail. We got Naya. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Thanks for being here today. Got Harry. Harry, another great leadership guy. He's always producing good content. Mary, glad to see you here today. I know Gail is liking this because she is curious and you know, Chief Curiosity Officer.
Right.
What you're doing, Frans, is so cool. I mean, your story and your background by working in a company and then moving into private equity, that was similar to me. And man, that is like a life-changing experience to make that transition, because it's about results when you get there. And like you said, you have to figure out, how do we focus? How do we get absolutely every bit of the junk out that we don't need to do, so our people can be working on the best and the brightest things to create the results?
Right.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah. So cool. And we got Alvaro too. Thanks, Alvaro.
Hey guys, again, happy Friday. We're here with Frans. He's coming to us live from the Netherlands. So it's evening. He's sacrificing his Friday evening with us. Frans, so you launched your entrepreneurial journey 10 years ago, been a big corporate guy. You had a wonderful career. What was that like? Was it exciting? Was it scary when you took that leap of faith of, like, you know, flying your own flag? What can you just kind of, for folks that are out there like, man, I wouldn't mind jumping into that entrepreneurial story as well. What was it like for you 10 years ago? Family obligations? What did that look like?
Now, from day one, it felt like this is right, you know, immediately. And the funny thing is, you know, because before I started, I did a check with, I think around maybe 15 to 20 people who I know, but they are at a distance. So I knew if I ask them, they will give an honest answer, and not a friend answer. So I also told them, hey guys, I have an idea. I just want to kind of move on and start with this kind of offloading and unlocking capacity thing. And I had two questions. I said, one, do you think that there is a demand for it, or is it just my imagination?
Yeah.
And secondly, do you see me developing some sort of business? And I say, I'm not interested in getting rich. I'm not interested. I just love to be successful with this. And all of them, without an exception, they said, Frans, it's great because I see it everywhere. And so I thought, oh, at least that's promising. And then I started. And then, of course, I said, you and probably also some of the people here online will have the same experience. Then it was hilarious, you know, because I thought, okay, so it's everywhere and everyone is waiting for it. And then I had, I think in the first year, like 30 or 35, you know, encounters with people running companies from very small, you know, from a guy who has here a physiotherapist center with 10 people to a stock market company with 12,000 people, in that range. And the funny thing is, everyone was interested in a kind of meet with me on a topic. None were interested afterwards in doing anything with me. Zero. So that was hilarious. And there were two reasons for it. You know, the first reason, the smaller, they said immediately, you know, it's for me, it was a blind spot. So it's a huge eye opener, but I can do it myself. And then, of course, my answer was an honest answer. I say, well, listen, I mean, I'm not going to tell you that I can something that you can't do. So you're 100% correct. But that's not the question. The question is, are you going to do it?
Yes.
And the big companies, there was another issue there. You know, they thought also was really interesting, but there were two things I heard a lot, and that's hilarious. One thing, I think what you say is really, really relevant to our company. Unfortunately, I don't see that we have time available to do something with it. So they said, you know, I have no room to unlock capacity.
I have no capacity to free up capacity.
No, but that was really what I heard. And the other thing that you guys have the same experience. The other thing was then with a number of them that at some point of time they started with name dropping, and then it was clear, hey, Frans, too bad if you would have been from McKinsey. You know, I mean, you could sign on spot here and start with it. So that was so in the first year and a half I did help everyone, but I was doing nothing in terms of I had only unlocked my agenda. That was true, but that was about it.
That's just, you know what? That would have totally been me, Damon. I would be like, hey, Frans, could you come in and help me with capacity? I'm like, oh, we don't have time to do that. I could just see that. So I'm gonna go ahead, Damon. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I've got a ton of questions. Like this. This is such a great topic, Frans. This really is like you're just making the world a better place. You mentioned the word blind spots. Okay. So like a lot of companies, whether, again, like that small manufacturer, small company, 10 employees, as an employer, you want to keep people cranking. You don't want to pay people to not be busy. But how do you help people avoid those? How do you help them identify those blind spots and then move out of that? Because I know you talk a lot about, again, guys, we're connect with Frans. He's got great content on his LinkedIn. He's just put out his third book. It's all about freeing up capacity, offloading, great information that you put out. How do you help that small, executive or that entrepreneur to take those steps to get that offloading going?
Well, the key is that's really step one. Is discuss with them why do we want to offload? Because we all know, if it's not attractive enough, they will never put in the effort to make it happen. So the first thing is why do we want? Because for me it started because I wanted to accelerate on some strategic actions, and we had to accelerate. So there was a very clear thing I wanted to do, and I was aware I can only do it if I unlock. So that's the first thing, where I
real quick, Frans. So show the win, get them into let them see
where you want to go.
Let them see them as the hero at the end of the story first, and then you kind of work it backwards. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's it. Okay. And second, what's interesting, and also probably you have the same experience. Usually, people like at board level or people who own a smaller company, they always say, Frans, my team needs it. I don't need it. That's not what they say, but that's basically how they tell me. I'm fine, but my team needs it. And then that's also interesting because they say, well, probably your team needs it, but they also need something from you. Mm-hmm. And then I share with them my own experience, because when I was CEO, one of the ways that I kind of had my own wake up call, I started to realize that I was nonstop over asking my people. There was a very simple reason for it. They didn't like me, so they did not say to me, Frans, get the hell out of here. I don't like what you're saying. And the second reason was because I was not executing myself. I had no clue what I was asking. I had no clue if I came up with an initiative that takes 2 people, 2 weeks of work, or that I was basically activating 8,000 man-hour. I had no clue. But no one told me. That was the other side of the coin. And it's not only one direction, it's also that how do you make sure, and that's also what it is, so make sure your people are informing you about, am I able to do it, or do we need more resource for it? I can't handle it if we want, and that's, so there's always 2 sides on this. It's not only the leader, but it's also the people who run it.
Yeah, that's a key point, because that relationship you have to develop for those people to tell you that's like, listen, Frans, I want to do this, but I'm already at 95% capacity, and this runs me to 130% capacity. Right. We need to figure out some things. Right. Just that statement back to the leader in some companies is a death sentence for those people. You have to make it so it's a start of a great conversation to be able to go, okay, let's figure this out. Let's offload. Let's get things done that can allow us, because the strategic goal is definitely more important than some of that 90% that you're working on now.
Yeah, and then I like to add one thing to what you say, since we are in a manufacturing audience talking. There's a very, very key thing. I've also been running manufacturing companies in the past. But if you talk about a production line, we all know you never plan a production line for 100% full capacity all year long because you need time for maintenance, you need time for improvement. If you're in a business where there are a lot of I don't know how you call it, that's not a proper English way, but I call it like quick orders. I don't know if orders that they just come and you have to do. We all know it means probably, I just say a random number. For example, this production line, I can plan it for whatever 86% because I need this 40% for this stuff.
Yep.
What do we do with human beings? With the human production line, we plan it for 120%. Maybe for 110. So we ignore that human beings need maintenance, human beings need time to grow. There are always the unforeseen requests, but they come. So that's also the interesting thing. So we don't apply the same thinking, but it's totally equally relevant.
Right. And so let's go here. Your expertise is in strategic execution, if I'm not mistaken, right? Strategic execution. How do you know, what's the right project? Damon, we'd like to call them like those profit killers, those time wasters. Hey, we've got a new shiny object. What if that shiny object is like the future of the company? Frans, do you have any tips or strategies on like how do we identify what are the best projects either to park or to kill or to prioritize? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. There were two things, and I think they are two sides of the same coin. On one hand, it's always when you have project initiatives, you need a relatively small number of criteria which you use for decision making. Because otherwise, what's happening a lot, you get discussions like should we do this or not, and then you have, for example, 5 people in the room. They all have different assumptions. They don't speak it out, and there's not a shared list of criteria. So you can get incredible, difficult, and long discussions, which to a large extent are not needed if you clarify upfront. I mean, based on what criteria are we going to decide to start something or not? The same is on the other side in the offload. I call it offload criteria. I give you a few examples. I think also in the US, I came across a term like kill criteria, but it's exactly the same. Yeah. So what I mean by offload criteria, for what are examples? If something doesn't fit anymore the company goal or strategy, it's stop. Well, that's an offload criteria. Or for example, if that's very common, there is not a clear business case, get rid of it because for many projects which don't have it, or it's no longer needed because for new technology you don't need, or for example, someone else does it better. Right. So these, I think people underestimate, because offloading, guys, is very simple. Yes. It's really simple. And you don't need the newest idea that surrounds. You only have to apply some very simple things in a very consistent way, and that's all about offloading.
Right. Yeah. I'll just go real quick. Yeah. This reminds me of a simple principle that somebody told me. I can still remember the day that somebody told me this. It was a person that was trained here in the U.S. about lean manufacturing from some of the people that went in and taught it at Ford. And he said, we have the time in the day, and we look at the things we do throughout this time of the day, and in lean manufacturing, they call it value added and non-value added work. And he said, the value added work is just a little teeny bit of the day, and all the rest of the day, like 90, and a lot of times over 90% is non-value added work. He said, we don't try to go faster on the 10%. We just try to drop some of this 90% off of there to be able to do more of that value-added work during the day. And what you're saying aligns with that so perfectly, because I used to run CNC machines companies, right? There's CNC machine milling and other kinds of things that use a lot of automation. And they would talk about, well, we got to speed up the programs to go faster. And you would look and you say, well, how many hours is it actually cutting? And you go, well, out of 24 hours, we're cutting 8 hours or something like that, or 12 hours. Well, that's pretty good. I said, we don't need to speed anything up. We just need to make sure we're running more hours.
Yeah.
It's getting rid of the other things that really aren't causing you to be able to be productive in these companies. And it's so cool how you're teaching people how to do this, because in the office environment or in the administrative and engineering and all these other places that layer on top, they've done it in manufacturing so long in the process when they're making things, they've really worked on that. But oftentimes they just ignore the business part of it. Yeah. And that's where your most expensive and the biggest benefits that really can drive long-term success happen.
Yeah, but you know what just refer to what you're saying there. What I did see a lot of time is that I've experienced myself. For example, I'm running whatever food manufacturing company. I have whatever 60 products, and we all know a number of products are getting to the more end of life cycle stage. You always know what's happening. The sales guy is going to tell you we still have to keep producing it because it still makes money. It's still in my budget. The business development person said, hey, get rid of it because I need resource. I want to spend it. And what you see too often in organizations, they pay too much. They overemphasize what you are going to miss, and they pay too little attention to what you can gain. And this is also a critical way of thinking. Flip it around. You have to kill quicker. Also, products that or services you have to. And one interesting thing about the software company I've been working with, very successful. You know what they did, and I think it's great. Every year they have a number of consumer panels. Is that the right way of saying it?
Yeah. Yep.
And they ask them, okay, guys, what do you need? What do we have to add to our software? And it's an HR environment software. And of course, they did get a lot of stuff. And then they ask, okay, but we can't do it all. So what are 3 things we like to add? But now it comes. They simultaneously had a number of extra customer panels, and they ask only what should we get rid of, what you're not using there. So what is really amazing? They did not only add stuff, and we all know. I think Kurt knows the word I use. At some point in time, you start creating needless complexity because you only add stuff and add stuff and add stuff. And so what they did also remove stuff. So by doing that, they kept it simple. It didn't get too complicated. And it was also a great example.
Needless complexity. It's the KISS, right? Just keep it super simple.
Yeah.
For folks out there that are solopreneurs, maybe work on their own, work at home, maybe if you're we were talking about our dogs before we went online. If you eat your own dog food, with that, I don't know if you guys use that expression in the Netherlands, kind of a gross one, right? But any advice for solopreneurs out there? How do you really have that harsh discipline to say no to things and stay in your lane? Any advice there for our solopreneurs?
Man, well, I do myself all the time, and I will explain to you. Every year, I kind of take a momentum to kind of see, okay, from what I have been doing last year, what am I going to intensify, and what do I want to get rid of? Because you can't know. I always add some stuff to find out, but the adding is not the issue. But the issue is you have to again remove or stop much quicker than you're used to do. And by doing that, I always create room to really move forward, where I think, hey, here is really traction, here is really something going on. And everyone should do that. And don't be afraid to stop stuff, because the number of opportunities is an endless ocean.
Yeah. So just discipline relentlessly, say no. You used the word ultra focus was a great word earlier. Franz, I want to be mindful of your time. I know, like you're coming. You've got wild plans for Friday evening. I know you do, right? So we'll start winding down here. I caught a video of yours recently where you had a great topic, and you're talking about how to prevent offload, or like for companies out there that are caught in that. You gave 3 tips, and you were talking about, how do you offload? Number 2, what you just described, the simplicity. And number 3, how do you tap into your talent? How do you really tap into the resources that you do have to offload and free up capacity? Can you touch on that talent piece a little bit?
Yeah, no. Quickly, what I do is I always, when I work with teams, I always do what I would call a talent mapping and matching exercise, and incredible energizing. I think I've done it with over 50 teams over the past 2 years, and some very tough nuts in between. But what you basically do, you ask all team members to write down. I mean, what are your talents? What is something you're really good at? And don't be too specific. It can be a skill, it can be a capability, it can be something, but ask them. Then, of course, you always have to say it's not a game. Who has most of it? And I can say to you guys, I always make a joke, because I did it yesterday in the Netherlands with the team, and I said, guys, don't be too shy, because in Netherlands we say, don't be too much. I say, and then I tell them, of course, I say, well, when I do it with a US team, they all need 2 papers, to write it out. But anyway, go back to it. So that's the first. The second step is then I ask everyone to share what they wrote down with the rest of the team, and then I ask the team, what talents, what really good stuff do you recognize, Damon, Kurt, which he didn't mention himself. And guys, this is incredible. It's just an estimation. In the past years, with these 50 teams, I think on average there are around 10 people, 500 people. Not a single person had a silent moment. Everyone gets from the colleagues more stuff. Hey, Kurt, you're also really good at this and that. So that by itself is already an amazing experience, because how often does it happen that you tell each other, hey, you're really good at this? And then the third step in it, I then ask the team, for each person, what are 2 talents of, I just take again Kurt as an example, what are 2 talents of Kurt that we should use much more in the current stage? So then I start activating and I again limit it, because usually people have easily 10, 12, 14 good things, but I narrow it down to what are 2 things that we should really do, make much more use of as a team. And for example, yesterday I was in a pharmaceutical company, and there they had a lot of complicated stakeholders. And one of the issues was often to kind of tell something in a simple, convincing way. But there were 2 brilliant storytellers in the group, and everyone knew it. But so far they had never ever thought, if for me it was difficult to say, hey, I have to go to Kurt. Kurt, can you help me out? I mean, you are so good at making the right story. And so this is, and then the last thing, and then I relate to the offload, I'm also always challenging, who is the offloader in the room? Because you always find someone by nature who has no problem with saying, hey guys, I think we should stop this. It doesn't make sense, has no value. But you have to activate in a team, because not everyone has this talent to see or to also to another guy stop it. I say, and you don't stop it because it's stupid, because people don't start stupid stuff, but you stop it because there's better stuff around.
Man, drop the mic right there. That is just, what a brilliant strategy. And what you're doing, Frans, you're kind of, you're almost doing like that personal internal SWOT analysis, right? What are your strengths? What are you best at? And by taking it individually, now you collectively can say, all right, this is what our team is absolutely best at. We are really not good at X. Why are we wasting our time, energy, and resources on X? Let's get out of it so we can focus on doing something else better. So, man, I love that strategy.
Yeah.
Well, maybe one comment, because you guys know, because I always hear from people when in large companies say, oh no, we know that guy, we know that because we have done all this kind of management drive tests, and Kurt is very red, and Devin is green and blue and whatever. And I always say, guys, that's great stuff, but it has nothing to do with this. I mean, that's stuff more that I understand how Kurt behaves. I understand why we sometimes have a little struggle, because it's more about our drives, but it has nothing to do with what I just said. What I just said is there's an incredible toolkit here in the team, and we have a talent to not use the tools. Let's start using them.
Yeah. All right. Man.
Use the tools of the team.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
All right. Let's Damon, let's recap on a couple of things here, right?
Yeah. We got to start winding down. I know. It's awesome.
So again, like for our friends and family out there at the manufacturers, I love what you're saying, Frans. Like, hey, geez, that machine, it's not realistic to run a machine 100%. Why are we running our people 120%? And then on top of it, when we're bringing in that new, and I want to recap on, you're talking about that 2-way communication. I love what you're saying, Damon. We're like, hey, if somebody's at 95% and this project's going to put me at 130%, to have the freedom and the flexibility. And like you said, Frans, it's that trust, that environment of trust is just critical for me to come back and say, geez, Frans, I would love to do that project. What on my plate right now can I take off so I can do that project that you're proposing? And when you're coaching your teams, are you encouraging that two-way dialogue and try to create that environment of
Absolutely, because that's the only way, because you need that people are going to embrace this. Because one thing I like to say, I think there is now a great book out. I had no chance to still read it. It's from a guy from Stanford. His name is Robert Sutton, and I think a colleague Huck Rowe, if I say it right. The book's called Friction Habit. The Friction Habit. I think it's a great book because it's also very much related to the same topic. So look at. But what I like to say is that offloading is not a project. Offloading is a habit. And that's a key difference. So one thing that people have to understand, I think most people here will know the really great book, Atomic Habits. It's one of the absolutely by far best books I read in a couple of years. This is also, you have to make it a habit and not a kind of, okay, we are going to start an offload project. If people call me and say, Frans, we need you because we want to start an offload project, and I say you dialed the wrong number. And then I explain to you, and that's not. I don't say that out of arrogance, but then I always say this is not a project. If you're looking for let's do that's a one-off, and I say you can count days till you're again fed up till here, and then you're back where you started.
Yeah, it needs to be a continual process that you're incorporating a habit you're putting into your day.
Drop the mic again, right? Yeah, I love it. So creating a culture and environment of offloading, and for our solopreneur friends out there, just really having that discipline to know your strengths, know what your lane is, and just the ability to say no. Frans, first off, man, I want to thank you again. This was just really a therapy session for me today. That's I don't know who else, but I'm sure everybody loved this, benefited.
Thanks so much.
Boy, just please go back, hit the rewind button. If you miss anything from the beginning, go back and replay this whole thing. Frans just dropped tons and tons of golden nuggets to make your day just so much easier. And we didn't really we didn't dive deep. Frans, we're going to have you back. We didn't dive deep into the burnout aspect of what, onloading, overloading can cause. Just like freeing up that emotional and that mental capacity, and, how much more productive folks can be. Do you want to touch on that real quick?
Yeah. Well, okay, we can discuss another time, because one thing that's a kind of spin-offs, if you can call it like that. Because what I did discover was that I would not be surprised if in the US it's a little bit the same. What happens in an organization if someone kind of drops out with a kind of burnout? The person is immediately isolated from the environment where it happened. His or her boss is kind of more or less disconnected, because all of a sudden other people take care of it. And what is the issue here? I did over and over, see that a significant part of burnout is caused by organizations. It's not an individual issue. It's caused by the root cause is in the organization. But it's a total blind spot, and I can tell you why. The reason is because you can't compare one person with another person. I might have a little, issues also at home, or I might be small kids, asking a lot of attention. So what doesn't happen is in a certain part of the organization, for example, where managers non-stop overloading, and basically they just push people either in a burnout or they quit. Is that it never happens that on Monday morning they get 9 calls and 9 of their team members all say, my family doctor said I have to stay home, I'm burned out. So they don't recognize the pattern because it are all individual things. So what happens I know the West Europe, but what happens a lot is that organizations are concerned about burnout, about have to be careful that we don't overload people. But usually what then they come up with is a kind of, I don't know if that's an English way or US way of saying it, they come up with an a la carte menu. And an a la carte menu, not to not to deal with the cause, but how do you treat the consequences? Okay, so I'm going to learn you how to be a little bit more mindful. You can deal better with the situation, but that doesn't, touch the root cause of it. And the root cause is on the organization side. So we can discuss that time. It's a very interesting topic as well, related again to overload and offload.
Well, great way to wind down. And again, guys out there, I'm not a expert on this subject whatsoever, but boy, if you're feeling a little bit of burnout yourself, again, if you're a solopreneur or you're feeling burnout at your company, corporation, man, just take a pause, take a pause, talk to a friend, talk to an ally, just get your plate, you've got one and if you don't have that, that burnout can really be an ugly culprit. So guys, let's wind down. Hans, thank you, my friend. We appreciate you. We commend you. We applaud you. This was just such a great session. And like I said, if nothing else, this was a great session for me. I want to thank everybody that joined us today. And boy, just like we love to say week in and week out, just be someone's inspiration, just like Frans was for us today. Damon, how about a big round of applause for Frans, man, for just hitting the ball out of the park. Everybody out there, give Frans a big round of applause. Have a great weekend. Damon, man, we've got 2 great guests next week, but go ahead, take it away, brother. God bless everybody out there. Take it away, my friend.
Yep. Well, I was super excited about this conversation before we started, and wow, I'm even more excited now after talking with Frans for 45 minutes or so here, because these are simple things you can do to make a huge difference in your organization, in your personal life. And offloading the things that aren't really giving you value right now, or you just need to get rid of, is a huge thing if you can make those changes. I just love talking with Frans about it because he's helping so many people do it. Right. And like you said, Kurt, if you're listening to this now and you're catching us at the end, roll back to the beginning. There's a ton of great golden nuggets in here that you can glean off of this to help you, your organization. And just thank everyone for being here today. Thanks to all the people, Gail and Naya and Harry and Mary and Alvaro, excuse me. I'm tongue-tied as heck today, for dropping the comments. We would love having you guys with us. We'll be back again next week.